Wisconsin, let's do this thing. Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Thank you for hopping on the show. It was weird for those of you who've been with us for a little while, not being on Monday. We might have to look at getting it back to 3 days a week. We'll see. But especially with the kid coming in the meantime, prepping for that. She should be here next Monday is the plan. Super excited for that. So I highly doubt I'll be on here next week unless I have all kinds of energy and miss you guys that much. But super excited for tonight's show. Much love to everybody for swinging out, rolling through it with us. We appreciate y'all. We got Randy and Heath in the house. These guys are always on time. They're in this thing. Let's go. Appreciate you guys stopping by. Before we get going too far, always want to touch base with our friends who make this thing possible. That's going to be our good friends over at Ignite Dispensary and Cigar. Please make sure if you are in Wisconsin and looking to stay a law-abiding citizen with some pretty awesome hemp that makes you wonder how it's hemp and not something you pick up in Michigan. We've touched on this 100 times, but if you're new to the show, please just stop by a location to figure out how that works, or we'll talk to you when we see you in person. It's a lot of great areas out there. But just a reminder, they are located all across the state, and actually they're going to be hooking up at our table at HempFest. Also, in regards to HempFest, I got some awesome news to share with everybody. HempFest folks will be sharing it with you guys very soon. If they didn't post it yet today, I would expect it this week yet. It's actually going back to a free event. It's going back to its old location. It's going to be not too much music that I'm aware of, but the exciting thing is it sounds like they realize they want to take it back to kind of what it was, and it's going to be the free event again down in Madison. Ignite's going to be at our table too. They're going to have some prizes on our wheel that you can win, along with some of our goods. And also, it's a free event now again. So much love to the family over at HempFest for kicking that thing off. Also, want to touch one more thing. Shout outs again to everybody who stops out at this thing. Please hit that like button, hit that share. That really helps us in the tidal waves of Facebook land and all that stuff and trying to get the word out there. Excuse me. Also, obviously, today is September 11th. Just want to take a quick moment to think about all those people. I feel like it affected everybody, all of us. 9/11 did, but especially, the victims, first responders, families of the victims, that kind of thing. That was a crazy day in our history. One that I will never forget. I actually was playing hooky that day. And I just remember it was very bizarre, obviously, the whole thing and how that all went down. But looking back at it, I'm glad I had my mom there all day to kind of work through that. And just want to take a minute to remember that. One thing that I think 9/11 really did, I was in middle school, but I still remember like a sense of unity that really kind of came over the time, if you will. I feel like even like right now, there's just a lot of different things going on out in the world, especially like presidential debates and stuff, and a lot of division. But we always try to preach, unity. And I feel like if we think back at the time when the unfortunate events happened and realizing, hey, we got to work together, quit worrying about all this other extra loud noise out there, which it comes down to us uniting. I think that'll be a good chance for us on this evening's show, having a gentleman with a good perspective from the conservative side. And again, you guys know how my stance, and I try to share that with you guys, or at least the people of this movement. I feel like to get this thing done, it is cannabis itself is a unifier. I mean, it's a beautiful thing, and if there's anything that we can come or bring into the equation to help unite us, I think it's cannabis. So let's enjoy tonight's show. We're not here to push anybody to vote any way. That's not how we roll. We're all about inclusion around here. So without further ado, let's get Jordan in on here. We got Jill in the house. What's up, Jill? Thanks for swinging by. Jordan, can you hear me, sir?
Yes.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. And where are you located? You're in Janesville, Wisconsin. Okay, right on, man. We always kind of, when we got people that hop on the show, we always kind of just start with obviously the theme of cannabis being the podcast. We always like to kind of just hear, are you a user and or like just when was your first experience, like hands-on experience with cannabis, or did you see it help somebody, or what kind of got you into what introduced you to the cannabis side of things, I guess?
Yeah, I do use it very seldom. It's not really my focal point,
Sure.
really my identity, but I do use it. I prefer it over alcohol. In fact, I don't really like alcohol.
I'm with you there.
Um, yeah, the first time, probably that's going to be like 7th grade.
Okay.
Yeah. Where are you from, though?
I'm in Green Bay.
Okay.
Yep. So for those who don't know, Jordan and I cross paths on X, it would be called now. Not Twitter, even though we always default to Twitter in our heads. Just happen to share a lot of insight, perspectives on just things that don't make sense as far as the political parties are involved. And as we know, a lot of things are not as they appear. And people like to, especially the media, they like to, I don't know, just talk gibberish. And Jordan was one of the gentlemen I noticed calling out a lot of that. And I tend to do that, especially anything cannabis. I'm following a lot of pages and anti-cannabis groups to try and help educate those folks. So that's how we kind of cross paths. And he saw the podcast, and that's where he came up with the idea to get him on the show. So if you wanted to share a little bit about I had a couple things on here for you that I was going to maybe try to keep. I try to have some organization, but also if there's anything that comes across your mind or anything you want to kind of shift to, Jordan, feel free to do so. When it comes to cannabis legalization, do you feel that there is support from traditional conservative values on that topic, or where do you kind of?
The position of my party, Robin Voss is at the center of this position, is they want to isolate the beneficial properties of cannabis and put in a lot of other stuff and have that be a prescription base. You can get a prescription and go to a state-run dispensary with one of four, and you can get a pill cannabis. So yeah, I guess that's my party's position. It's not my position. If it were up to me, I put a lot of thought into it, and I'm not exactly sure how it would work. I have a few ideas, but I'm totally in support of the full legalization of it. I don't know how that's going to look exactly, but I think the pill thing is ridiculous.
I agree with you there, man. It seemed kind of like in my opinion, it was the only way that you could come out and try to act like you were in support of something, knowing full well that it was so kind of bizarre that it wasn't going to pass. But then you know what I mean? Like, I think we're on the kind of the same wavelength there with that. Real quick, before I miss a comic here, we got Nick was wondering if you were going to be down at Hempfest this year. Were you going to be able to
Where's
make
that
that?
going to be at?
So that is going to be the 28th and the 29th of this month. That's down in Madison.
We'll see.
We'll see. Right on. We'll be down there. So obviously, if you stop down there, Jordan, make sure you let me know because it'd be nice to meet you in person.
Yeah.
But no, I think we're on the same wavelength there. And I think the majority of conservative voters, knowing quite a few, I mean, I don't. Again, I feel like nobody should hold any who we vote for, in my opinion, is like one of the least most important things to me when it comes to who my friends are, who I surround myself with.
Sure.
I feel like it is just part of being raised in the United States that like your family typically leans one of two ways, and I don't think any family tries to look at the negative side. They usually look and hang on to the good sides of that part. Like there's some people that are like, oh, what was that, man?
We all know people that differ from us.
Yep, exactly. So I think a lot of people who are not in office but tend to lean conservative are in the same kind of boat as us, except for some of maybe the older crowd who's not educated on the subject, because obviously we know about like reefer madness and all that kind of stuff back in the day, but I don't know if the reasoning for you as preferring cannabis is the same as me to alcohol, because if I'm around people who are drinking, I don't have fun anymore. Like people get loud. I don't like that. I don't like, I don't like going to Packer games. I live in Green Bay, but I don't like going to Packer games because everyone's all just, you don't get a first down. You fucking piece of shit. It's like,
Right.
calm down, bro. Like smoke a blunt or something, bro. Like chill. So I don't know. I just always kind of had that taste of alcohol in that, and where cannabis, it's always not always, but it typically. I mean, I can't remember the last time I went to an event and didn't think alcohol or a little bit of cannabis probably makes it a little more interesting. Like it just,
Sure. Yeah,
that's just how it works.
It's an enhancer. That's what
Yeah.
I think of it.
There you go, especially for creativity. So again, I think you're spot on with where it appears the some of maybe like the elder Republican political figures, especially Mr. Voss, where their stance is on it. But I will say, and I've talked to the folks on here quite a few times, when it comes to when I sit down with folks at the Capitol, I was expecting it to be a lot more Vosses when I talk to Republican folks, but it's very much more so people like yourself who understand it, and but they push the blame to Voss. And part of me gets that, I guess, because that's your boss, the boss. But at the same time, if you represent the people that are voting for you, and that's how you stay in office, and maybe this is why I wouldn't be a good politician. I don't have any desire to be, but like if I was in the Capitol, and that's my place of work, knowing what I know about cannabis, so the people that I've seen it help, I can't just sit back and say, no, Voss doesn't want it legal. No, I'm going to be there every day. Like, Voss, what can I do? What can I look into? What can we, you know what I mean? Like, it's frustrating. So we'll have to just keep an eye on it and see where they end up on the topic. But we are just working to get that voice together to help our elected officials be able to stand up to Voss, I guess, is what it comes down to. When we're looking at how do you respond, Jordan, when you got fellow conservatives who argue that legalizing cannabis could lead to increased crime or other negative social consequences? Do you get a lot of the stereotypical flack from other conservative folks? Or
I hear a lot about public nuisance. You don't want to be. This is what I hear, that they don't want to smell it, and like an apartment scenario.
Sure.
So there's all this gray area. That's the kind of thing that I hear, but I already, it's already there. It's the thing is it's practically as if it's already legal. Right. So we're just pretending that it's not.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely accessible.
But that doesn't mean I also agree with the public nuisance part of it, though, in a way.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and it's like I tell one of the frames of reference I use in this case is the smell of cigarettes. I just want to throw up. Like, and if that's how people, like, I love the smell of cannabis, but I completely understand that a lot of people don't, including my wife. And that's just the assumption I make when I'm in public, that is there anyone around who can smell it? And if they can, unless they say it's cool, I'm not gonna, I respect that, because again, when it comes to cigarette smoke, I just cannot stand it. So I just kind of use that as a frame of reference. Like, I respect other people, but I understand that you almost have to have that written into some kind of law, because otherwise there's going to be those people out there who are, man, I can do whatever I want. Like, those are the people who ruin it, unfortunately. But so I think we can agree on.
There should be some kind of a citation, citation clause in the bill. I'm sure there would be, dozens of details in the bill that we'd have to see how they worked out.
Sure. Have some kind of a designated smoking areas or that kind of stuff.
There's got to be something.
Yeah. Yep. And I think we can agree on that for sure. Moving on here. What role do you believe the states' rights should play in cannabis legalization versus federal mandates? I guess,
I think it should be through the DHS. I think it should be through Wisconsin DHS. I think that the issuance of dispensary licenses should be through the DHS. But that's the role I think that would play, is they'd have to issue licenses and stuff like that.
Sure. And I feel that we don't need to wait for federal to legalize. Obviously, we see how many states have been able to figure out some form of legalization. Are you kind of in the same boat there that we have some older conservatives who say it's not going to get legal here until it's legal at the federal level? I'm assuming that's not necessarily where you stand on that.
No, not at all.
Fair enough. How do you see cannabis legalization aligning with the principles of personal freedom and limited government intervention?
It's just like firearms. Imagine if a speaker from the other side said, "I'm not comfortable with firearms, therefore Bob or Jordan shouldn't be able to handle them or possess them or carry them."
That's a good way to put it.
It's similar to that.
Sure.
It's a civil liberty.
I agree with you there, man. 100%. And actually, that's a good way to look at it, because that's there was a point in my life where I only voted Republican. And it's definitely over the last few years when I kind of started just freeing myself from kind of my upbringing. And it's not, I don't think it was a bad thing or anything like that, but just looking more at the people we're voting for as opposed to how policies that typically are this way fit with my lifestyle, I guess. And trying to, I think we can both admit it's pretty hard to get I feel like it's really hard to get the realness out of politicians these days, which is unfortunate, but that's what I try to do. Like, okay, if I fell down and both these candidates are walking by, who's going to help me up? Or are these both these people just going to walk by and say, screw that guy? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to freedom, like especially the Republicans side, they push the freedom side, but then they want to be so restrictive on so many different things. Obviously, cannabis being one of the bigger ones. So I think it's a good way to kind of
like for example, when they say that they are Milton Friedman free market economists, and then they're going to relegate cannabis to 4 state-run dispensaries.
Right. Yeah, exactly. 100%.
Not very free market.
No, not at all. Nick had a comment here. What about those who want to grow their own? What are your thoughts on home grow?
I support that 100%. Where I was thinking about this earlier is like farmers markets. I know you said, and you said multiple times about selling at farmers markets.
Sure.
And I support homegrown 100%. And I think that's actually the better thing.
Well, and I think it would help to kind of keep
some industrial
keep things in check, and also just keep things affordable. For the folks that I know who have been able to figure it out, there's obviously a learning curve with everything, but if you have the space, it doesn't take. Well, there's some people that have very high tolerances out there, so I guess some of y'all would have a huge light bill to keep your supply going, but especially for like medical and that kind of thing, when we just think about, man, when I worked in the dispensary, some of the medications that people were getting off and the costs associated with those, and to just think like growing, I don't see growing costing, that much, especially if you're able to do outdoor grow. I mean, we're talking pennies on the dollar. So I think that
tomatoes or
exactly, I think that's the best way to kind of look at it. It's, I think one of the things that gets pushed as a negative from the negative Nancy's out there is, well, then you're going to be a dealer. I don't think anybody, if you're not a farmer, like I don't know anybody who can grow 100 tomato plants. You can do a little, it's easy to control that, but you start throwing it, like, I think that's just outside noise when it comes to that, in my opinion. I mean, I think there should be, ideally, I don't think there has to be restrictions, but again, unfortunately, in this world of I can do this because I can, I understand some restrictions as far as I think 18 is the perfect number. You got 6 growing, you've got 6 in seedling, and then 6 in case something goes wrong. So if you walk into someone's house and there's more than 18, or something realistic. So I think we're on the same page with that.
Along those lines, also in legislation should be we should favorite small growers.
Yes, I
We
agree with
should
that.
build into the legislation some way to give favoritism to small growers. That's what
That's a great point. And we were just talking about a news article last week. I can't remember who it was, but they indeed. Oh, that was California with the farmers market. It was only for the small growers that could set up there. So again, finding ways to help out those small guys, I think that's a great. And again, it kind of feels like the Republican thing to do, if
Yeah.
by their standards. Joel, real quick, has a comment. He says, "I disagree. I believe it should be regulated like alcohol. Firearms are dealt with on a federal level. Does that mean you'd want us to do background checks to get a baggie?" Oh, sorry, Joel. I meant when I was talking about, I meant like talking to a conservative politician and saying, well, if you are worried about the negatives of cannabis, how come you're not worried about the negatives of firearms? And those are just okay to, but I get what you're saying, Joel. But no, I don't think you need to do an ID check to get a baggie. Maybe if you're going to be a dispensary owner, I could see a background check, that kind of thing. Again, I think that would probably fall into the same category as alcohol. I guess I don't know for sure, but I feel like if there is some actual good structure in our legislation, I would hope there's some kind of a background check in an alcohol store owner, being that you're talking to sub.
Right.
Yeah, okay, I would think so, but who knows?
Or for a concealed carry license.
Yeah, there you go. You grow your, then you know what it's going into. That's a good point. Jill says my husband and mother-in-law can grow 100 tomatoes. All right, I'll remember that. Jill said you had a great point. I missed when she said that, but good job, Jordan. And Peter says that's what Wisconsin cannabis program needs to hammer: small business, small growers. I agree with you there for sure, especially again with the amount of farmers we have. I think we could really have a booming industry out here and take care of some folks who have been.
And that's not even getting into the real, I don't know, I guess you'd call it a conspiracy, because people in Madison definitely have interests. Let's call them.
Yeah.
So, I think part of that position is how can we benefit our interests?
Right.
How can we give, I don't know if you want to call it pharmaceutical interests, kind of a monopoly on distilling what would be the pill and then prescribing it in the state-run.
Yeah, that's definitely what it felt like with their presentation. Again, if it was
that's
legit,
that's my instinct. What he was
right.
It's just
right that it was going to be
giving a softball to his interest.
Right. Like, hey, you guys can stay. We're not going to take away from, and that's what's crazy, man. The plant helps so many people with so many different things. It's not the cure all. It's not for everybody. I would say it's for the majority of people, if they had the chance to get educated on it, because it's definitely not just, you buy a 12-pack of beer, and I would say the variance in somebody who drinks 6 beers is not that great when we're talking people who are typically similar in size, where I feel like with cannabis, I know some people that, a joint and they're normal, and a joint and they're way out there. So like, as far as that goes, like I get that part. But if we could sit down, it's not realistic, but if you could sit down with somebody and help them through it, I feel like it's I know a lot of people that it's helped that were surprised. And I feel like, again, it's not for everybody though, but
information campaigns.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think though that's part of what hurts it, is because it does help people with a lot of things. It does get people off of pharmaceutical prescriptions and that. And I feel like if it didn't, it might be easier. I don't know for sure, but I do feel like there is a big push behind closed doors. Well, probably won't go into that. So I'm surprised. Somebody who I know who's a pharmaceutical rep wants nothing to do with anybody who uses cannabis. And that to me is probably because of what I think could be out there. But again, I guess that's a conspiracy theory. We don't want to go too far into that, but I don't know. It's just frustrating. Real quick here. We got a question for you that came through. What are your thoughts on the medical cannabis industry and its impact on both healthcare and state economics? Kind of what we're on here.
It's cool. I'm cool with it. I would prefer a free market solution, because, You got a local grocery store that you go to, like maybe a small one over there?
Yep.
Well, we got Basics in Janesville. Like, I trust a little grocery store like that. They're just a small. They got a couple stores, but it's a Wisconsin company, and I trust someone like that to bring the product to market. I don't know exactly how that would look, if they would be able to sell it in their grocery store or maybe have an adjacent. But I just trust, one of the things that I want in this bill is like a legacy clause where I trust Woodman's to be able to bring product with integrity to the market.
Sure.
I trust Basics. I trust people that are here. You know what I mean?
Right. Invested in the community kind of thing.
Yeah. So like a grandfather clause or something like that.
Sure. And I think you got a good point too, as far as, or I think what they were trying to get at, or well, one of the possible things, but I think we could, or would you agree that if somebody's using it strictly for medicinal purposes, that they either get like a tax cut or slightly better pricing or something? I mean, in my opinion, ideally the pricing structure of cannabis in general would be closer to Michigan, because I feel like, especially if you look at Michigan's numbers, the price of recreational has come down so much that the people signed up for medical just keeps going way down, because it's just an extra loophole to go through for almost the same cost. And I think that's kind of what you're saying.
Prices down.
Right. Yep. And that's what the free market should bring to the table. Do you know, question here they have, are there any Republican legislators that you know or are working with to push cannabis legalization forward in Wisconsin? Or do you know of any?
The other side has all of the momentum. I mean, we had such a great opportunity to take voters from them and bring them over here and talk about the free market, talk about freedom and civil liberty. And I just feel like all those people went to the left, and the things that they are for, I'm against in a certain way, because they're just trying to imitate, in my view, Illinois. They're trying to imitate other people instead of what I want is, let's have a Wisconsin way about this. Let's not imitate other people. Let's try to do things a little differently, take things maybe a little slower, and try to incorporate it into our culture, our values in Wisconsin. I think that would work a lot better than Illinois or California or Colorado.
Trying to take a big city, big state kind of approach to it. I feel you there. And it is unfortunate because, again, I know there's still quite a few folks out there who feel like it's their side or the highway when it comes to politics, but I feel like you do need a balance, or ideally there's a balance between the two, and there's working together. But I feel like, especially in Wisconsin, where there's no ballot initiative, which just completely blows my mind every time I say that out loud, that if you want to vote for cannabis, you almost have to vote blue. But I don't think anybody should vote for a candidate just because they support or don't support cannabis. Please make sure you do your homework on, it's just like, that's my opinion. So if you're listening and cannabis is the most important thing to you, nothing else is, by all, I'm not saying you can't just vote for a candidate because they support cannabis, but I feel like you should do a little more homework, figure out a couple different topics. But it is super frustrating that if you were to be in the position of, I just need cannabis, it needs to be legal, I feel like a lot of people feel like their only option is to vote blue. So
that's a huge opportunity missed.
Right. Well, and you would think that's where I was kind of talking to you before we hopped in here. Like, that's where I thought I was going to be able to go to the Capitol and kind of, I've been in sales my whole life. So I thought it was going to be kind of like the cannabis educator and the salesman to the Republicans of, hey, let's get you some votes, man. Right. You're all about one stay in office. But it's just like, oh, we can't because of us. We can't because of us. Like, come on, man. Somebody do something here.
Yeah, and it's not just him. I mean, he needs the Senate, and and the legislature and the governor to cooperate. And there's a lot of uncooperative topics there, but
a lot of back and forth, finger pointing.
Missed opportunity for sure, though.
Definitely. Do you have any ideas on how the pro-legalization movement, maybe specifically Let's Legalize Wisconsin, but or otherwise or in general, do you have any ideas on how we could better appeal to conservative voters and politicians? I feel like the voters are pretty, your cannabis enthusiast Republican voters, I feel like we already do a pretty good job of, because I try to not let comments run wild and people attack each other and on the whole left versus right, and try to respect your neighbor. But I do feel like there's probably I feel like if we were to really narrow it down, I think our biggest holdup in just general voters from legalization, and it's definitely not the majority, but it would be the older conservative crowd. But do you have any ideas on how the movement could better attract maybe some of those older conservative voters or some of these politicians?
I don't know, but I know that if I was going to devise a plan to not win, it would be exactly what the Republican leadership in the Senate and legislature and Robin Voss and all these other people are advocating. So whatever they're doing, I would do the opposite.
That's pretty fair. Pretty respectable comment in my opinion there. And I think Nick hits this on the head. I've said this a few times as well, because a lot of people are kind of just down in the dumps. Like, we're going to be the last state to legalize. This is ridiculous. I get that. But at the same time, I always try to, especially when I'm trying to keep myself motivated for the sake of other people, like this movement and that. I try to find some silver linings. Let's look at some other states that have legalized, which now there is a crap ton of. And then let's compare X, Y, and Z. Okay, Michigan's doing something right. Look at their sales numbers of units sold per person compared to Illinois. I mean,
it's the economics of it too.
Yep, exactly. So I think you're right there as far as the hybrid policy, 100%. And again, that's what I'm trying to tell these folks is because they're we'd have to, whatever you need, the information's out there. There's enough folks that have legalized. There's basically any avenue with any part of legalization. One of the states is probably doing it. See how it's going. Check in with them. Ask them. It's not rocket science. They're definitely, for some reason, like the chaos they're creating. I swear. What do you think are the biggest misconceptions that conservatives have about cannabis, and how could we dispel those myths? Well, you talked about the. I don't know if that was a myth, but one of the concerns that a lot of the folks have. But is there any other, do you hear a lot of it leads to, or it's the gateway drug or that kind of thing?
I don't hear that personally so much, but I mean, there is a few things that are right. Like, perhaps it is habit forming. Perhaps if you have a predisposition to, schizophrenia or something like this, perhaps that it's not good for that. So I think it probably stems a little bit from that. Like they're uncomfortable with it being psychoactive, or they have some negative stigma about psychiatry or something like that.
Sure.
But as far as the other one, no.
Fair enough. And I think I can't remember which senator I can't remember. It was last month, kind of right in the middle of all this preparing to be a dad thing, and but somebody had said, I think you really got to hit the basically overdue hitting the Republican legislators with with the science, with the which I know that sounds kind of counterintuitive, but as from the standpoint of if there's a hearing about cannabis, get as many freaking doctors as you can get there to go up there and talk about the benefits of cannabis, kind of approaching it that way.
Yeah.
And I think that might be something that's been lacking in this state. I've shared a couple of times. I've been surprised how many offices in the Capitol, when I walk in with my big Let's Legalize Wisconsin shirt, and they kind of give me this, whoa, no one ever comes in here to talk to us about cannabis before? So I feel like it's, probably been on its own little island of, trying to get its legs moving in the Capitol building. So I do feel like, as opposed to just some guy who worked in the industry, getting some of those doctors or some of those stories, really trying to get those together, maybe get those across the desks of some of the folks there. Excuse me. Nick says, how many millions of tax dollars are we losing to the surrounding states? Right.
Untold billions.
We had gentleman was in Menominee last weekend, and just one store in Menominee, one dispensary, and sat there for 6 hours and counted 524 Wisconsin license plates.
Yep.
And I don't know about you, but if I'm driving to Michigan, I'm gonna make it worth my drive there.
Yeah.
I'm not just going there to get a pre-roll. But yeah, I think we all are on the same page with that. It's a lot of money. It's crazy. Do you see opportunities for bipartisan cooperation on cannabis legalization? Or do you think there's still the major ideological hurdles that are out there right now?
Maybe in the future, but we got to put something out there first. Our side has to put something out there first and see how it goes before we want to work with the other side, and who knows what it would lead to.
Sure. Well, and it's crazy because we're just some guys on the internet as far as politics are concerned. You and me, but I feel like I could be very strong in liberal beliefs,
sure,
and you have very strong conservative beliefs. But I feel like because we're not part of this big machine that is funded by millions of dollars, that we can have we would be able to have this cordial conversation. And to understand, like, I don't get why either party, when it comes to cannabis, I don't know, because they both shake their head at each other, because the Democratic Party is like, yeah, and the Republicans, I can't believe they won't get anywhere. I get where the frustration is on both sides, but how come nobody has once said, okay, what are your concerns and how can we work together? We can't. We're not going to settle and drop everything we believe to do everything you believe. Mm-hmm. Let's meet in the middle, though. Let's start talking about them instead of just behind closed doors and then bringing something up. And like Agard's bill doesn't get touched. Half the people haven't read it because it's a Democrat and they're a Republican. Like, it's just frustrating, man.
Sure.
Silly. It really is. But we're the crazy ones, right? Like, why are these guys just talking politics on a podcast? They're not going to change anything. Yeah, well, what are you guys doing? Oh, wait, you're not even in session. You've been on vacation for 4 months. Like, I don't know, man. It's just crazy. What advice would you give to conservative voters who are on the fence about supporting cannabis legalization?
On the fence about it? Well, I suppose they're probably a little bit skeptical because maybe the bill, they don't have the right bill. It's not the right legislation. Maybe it's hard to say.
That's fair.
It's a civil liberty, just like firearms. I'm a huge Second Amendment advocate. Just like growing your own food or alcohol or anything else, it's a civil liberty. So I believe in freedom. Firearms, cannabis.
Right, you kind of put them in the same boat, and that's really what I think. It should come down to when it's, it's what I completely respect. If you don't want to have anything to do with cannabis, by all means, I'm not going to make you engage in use cannabis, or if you don't like me on cannabis around you, I respect that, and I won't. I'm not saying that at all we should be forcing the use on anybody. But when it comes to people who are on the fence or worried about other people using it, I think they just need to maybe talk to some people who are using cannabis. I feel like there was definitely a point back when it was a little more closeted as far as being able to use it. You wouldn't go out in public. Or I remember being super paranoid about every which way I was going, and if I was using, or if my parents were home, or I feel like part of the paranoia comes from it just being illegal in the state of Wisconsin, because you don't want to get in trouble for having a plant and it's ridiculous. Like, we're not saying people should get high and not work and be lazy and or get high and drive forklifts. Like, we're about responsible use. We want to educate. We want to help people more than anything. Again, I haven't changed how I use cannabis over the last couple of years. I just use it to help with my ADHD at the end of the night and with my back pain. But when I started to see the amount of people it was helping, especially like older folks and veterans, that kind of stuff, and I started seeing these folks coming in, that's when I'm like, wow, this is a powerful plant. Again, not some pharmaceutical made in a bathtub with bath salts or anything. Like, it's I don't know. It's just something that's really stuck with me since I've seen it kind of doing its thing and trying to understand why we're so far behind the times here in Wisconsin.
That's another great point, though. I have family that lives in Appleton and in Neenah.
Sure.
And my uncle, he was in the Army, and he was a electrical engineer for Wisconsin DOT for his whole career. And he's retired now, and he fishes. It's like, and he drives to Michigan to buy pot and pays Michigan taxes. You're going to tell my uncle, an Army vet or any vet in Wisconsin, that they can't smoke pot if they want to? It's crazy.
Right. Yeah, it is crazy.
And there are a lot of veterans who like to smoke pot.
Yeah. No, there are. Nick does bring up a point. He says there are many veterans who are anti-psychotic drugs, which I'm sure there is as well.
Yeah, I mean, SSRIs and all that garbage.
Yep. And it's not for everybody, but Nick is an Army vet as well. Okay, right on, man. Appreciate your service very much. Well, Jordan, I appreciate your time on here, man. Let's definitely stay in touch. I feel like this is awesome dialogue because, again, I think this is what we need more of in the world, which is, we can have some different core beliefs, or we all share a lot of the same beliefs, but because of politics and the way they are divided today, I feel like it's hard sometimes to, we hadn't talked before this, but the fact that we were able to be respectful, just notice that
you're a good guy. That's why I wanted to do it.
Yeah, you're right on. Appreciate that.
I was going to guess that you were in marketing because.
Okay. Yep. I used to be in marketing.
Sure. Oh, you were?
Yep.
Oh.
Fair enough.
Yeah, because I really liked how everything was professional, and I think that your show is going to go really far.
I appreciate that, man. That's the hope, is just touching on all the different subjects. Again, kind of doing what I feel like the people holding this thing up should be doing. But seeing the benefits of the plant, like I just can't sit back and be, well, they'll figure it out, So I appreciate you hopping on. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your bringing information to the table and being willing to speak with us. We'll definitely stay in touch, my man. I hope you have a great one, and let me know if you're going to be able to make it down to Hempfest, man.
All right. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You bet. Hey, everyone, have a great night. Thanks again for stopping out for another episode of the podcast. I don't think I'll be on next week again because.
And congratulations on the baby.
Hey, thank you, man. Appreciate that. We also have a big baby. We had our last ultrasound yesterday, and the lady goes, I don't think you're going to be wearing any newborn clothes, or you put your newborn clothes away. So we got a big old baby bean on the way. So I'll keep you guys posted. I probably won't be on next week, but we'll be back at it the week after. And again, Hempfest is free again now this year. Much love to the Hempfest team and making that.
And we should do an in-person podcast, perhaps.
Ooh, let's do it. I like it. All right. Sounds good. I'm going to hold you to that, Jordan. We'll catch you guys later. Everyone have a great night. We're out here, guys.
Thanks.